Welcome to Walking with Jesus Bible Study. We're going to be in the book of Proverbs, chapter 8, verse 13. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogancy, and the evil way, and the forward mouth do I hate. Let me repeat that. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogancy, and the evil way, and the forward mouth do I hate. God shows that towards certain things he can't stand. Things that is worth taking note of. It may surprise non-believers to discover that hate is used very rarely in the Bible when it comes to God. But since it is evident he is much more a loving and merciful Father to us, the only thing God truly hates are those sins that may take his children from him. The sins of pride, arrogance, evil deeds, and the lies that both create the climate to commit former acts and helps sustain them. We got to stay away from the things that God claims that he hates. And there are several things that he does hate. You know, in the Bible, it says that God hated Ishnu. Why? It's not that he hated Ishnu, the person, but he hated his evil deed. He gave away his inheritance. His inheritance. That means he was denying God as his father, that he didn't want his son, his rightful inheritance being his son. He sold his birthright. See, a lot of people want to sit here and when they read the story between Jacob and Esau, that, you know what, he deceived them, but he didn't. He did, but he didn't. He literally had to take back what was rightfully his, because if you read before that, when he deceived his dad to get the blessings, that Ishnu gave away his birthright and sold his inheritance to him. But because now he was no longer starving, and it had been way later, do you think that he was going to continue to keep his word? No. And it clearly proved that when he was upset and mad because his brother Jacob had already stole his blessings, but he gave it away. So Jacob did right, and his mother did right, because technically it was sold and gifted to him. See, Ishmael did evil. That is the evil deed that he did, that God did, and the reason why God said, I hate him. Jacob I love. And so a lot of people don't understand, why would God say, I hated Ishmael? For that reason. He pretty much denounced and disowned God by giving away his birthright and inheritance. Many times in the Bible it says that God hates a very proud and forward mouth. The book of Proverbs says over and over again that a wise man keeps his mouth shut. Man, when I was reading that book of Proverbs, it just like, it stabbed me every single time it said that. Why? Because I've always been a person my whole life that my mouth just kept on running and it never shut. I always spoke my mind. I always spoke the truth. I didn't care if it hurt your feelings or not. The truth is the truth. And I used to say that. Well, I mean, I can't help it. It's the truth. What do you want me to say? That it ain't? Don't say. You know, I could have just not said nothing at all. And I always said the things when I wasn't supposed to say it. Apparently when people said, oh, it's too soon or at the wrong time. Hey, So the book of Proverbs taught me a lot, and it poked at me a lot, and I was like, ooh, God, how did you put up with me? Because the mouth I had on me. And I always thought that it meant that having a forward mouth meant something that was I always just picture somebody just being a little bit too forward, as what it comes in a sexual context, and not just being blunt. Being very bluntness is the same thing as being forward. And I didn't, at one point in time, I didn't realize that it meant the same thing. I was like, well, I don't have a forward mouth. I don't talk all like, that kind of sexual stuff like that. But I am very blunt. Very blunt. So God had to teach me how to knock that off. If you have a very loud mouth, you might want to read the book of Proverbs several times to let God stab at your heart a little bit, let you get pierced a little bit, to learn how to keep your mouth closed. Just because you know it doesn't mean you need to say it. Just because it's funny don't mean it needs to be said. Just because it was a good one don't mean you needed to have that comeback. And I'm a very witty person, I'm fast, and I'm hard to get got, you know what I'm just saying? But you got to learn to keep the mouth closed, and that taught me a lot. Pride and arrogance was one of the biggest things that Satan let to get a hold of himself and be this big old giant person where he thought he was better to God, and that he deserved to have a throne that was higher than God. Because not only was he the smartest and the wisest and the most beautiful angel ever, that he thought he might as well just be better than the one who created him. He forgot that he was created by somebody else, that he didn't create all this goodness. But see, when you're so stuck on yourself and so full of yourself, you begin to believe that it was all you, that you're the one who has done everything and you're the one who is everything, that you forget that, you was made. Somebody else created you, and if it weren't for them, you would not exist. And so that's what happens when we get too prideful and too arrogant. It's all about us. And that's why self-idolatry is a big evil sin. Birthdays. You didn't do nothing. You was just born on that day. What is it that you did that day? To where you got to say it's about me, 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 me. Look at me, look at me. It's self-idolatry. And Satan knows that. And see, this is one of the reasons why, we're not supposed to, because the devil wants to make everything about him, and he wanted to be worshipped. He wanted to be a god. He wanted people to follow him as God had people following him. So he made it all about himself. Letting the pride and arrogance take over, it consumed him. And that's what happens to a lot of people. I don't know if you've seen some of these things when people be making these videos and you see these parents giving their kids nice fancy cars like BMWs and Mercedes, and they're like complaining about it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, see the arrogance and the prideness, that they are so consumed with themselves that they couldn't even be happy that they received a car, let alone that it be a BMW or a Mercedes or something else. And see, man, if that doesn't speak loudly to you to make you relook and adjust yourself about, I hope I don't act like that. Because there are some little small things that may not have been BMW, but there's got to be some things in your life that you could be like, oops, you know what? Kind of the same thing. So we need to reflect and be careful and be wise.